The great chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure built by 1,000 different species over 10,000 years. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in a circle that stretched for miles. Today, they would make a decision that would change everything. Ambassador Velter stood at the center platform, his 6 arms gesturing with confidence. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that shimmered under the artificial lights. His species, the Kryn, had been part of the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years. They knew how these things worked. Honored members of the Council, Velter began, his voice echoing through the chamber. I bring you a solution to our Torvin problem. Around the circle, thousands of eyes turned toward him. Some were curious. Others were tired. The Torvin Empire had been causing trouble for decades. They were warriors, always looking for new worlds to conquer. The Council had tried everything to keep them peaceful, but nothing worked for long. The Torvin need somewhere to expand, Velter continued. Somewhere that will satisfy their need for conquest without threatening established civilizations. I have found the perfect target. A hologram appeared above the platform. It showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet looked beautiful, covered in water and green land. White clouds swirled across its surface. This is Earth, Velter said. A primitive world on the edge of the galaxy. The inhabitants call themselves humans. They have only just discovered how to detect ships moving faster than light. They are technological children. Council Representative Kalma leaned forward in her seat. She was old, even by galactic standards, and her gray skin was wrinkled with age. What do we know about these humans? She asked. Velter smiled. Everything we need to know. They are divided into over 200 separate nations. They fight constant wars among themselves using primitive kinetic weapons. Their most advanced spacecraft cannot even leave their own solar system. They still burn fossil fuels for energy. He pulled up more data. Images of human cities appeared, along with their weapons, their vehicles, their technology. To the Council members, it all looked pathetically simple. They have nuclear weapons, one representative noted. Yes, Velter agreed. But their delivery systems are slow and easily intercepted. Our intelligence shows they could never threaten a proper military fleet. The Torvin shields would stop anything they could launch. How many humans are there? Another representative asked. Approximately 8 billion. They breed quickly, but they also die easily. Their average lifespan is less than 100 of their years. They are fragile, weak creatures. Kalma studied the hologram carefully. Something about this felt wrong, but she could not quite identify what bothered her. Have we made contact with them? No, Velter said. They do not even know we exist. We have observed them from a distance only. That is part of what makes them perfect. The Torvin will have the element of complete surprise. Far away on the blue planet in the hologram, Day One sat in his laboratory and stared at his computer screen. He was a young man, only 32 years old, with thick black hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He worked at the Seoul Institute for Advanced Astrophysics, and for the past 3 days, something strange had been bothering him. The numbers on his screen did not make sense. He was studying gravitational waves near Mars, and the readings showed anomalies he could not explain. It was as if something very large was bending space itself, but nothing should be there. Hannah, come look at this, he called to his colleague. Hannah walked over, holding a cup of coffee. She was younger than Day One, fresh out of graduate school, with bright eyes and a skeptical mind. What is it this time? She asked, a slight smile on her face. Day One was always finding problems that turned out to be nothing. These readings near Mars, the gravitational distortions are getting stronger. I've checked the instruments 3 times. Everything is working correctly, but look at this pattern. Hannah studied the screen for a moment, then shrugged. It's probably just instrument drift. Or maybe solar interference. Mars is on the other side of the sun right now. That could cause weird readings. But the pattern is too regular, Day One insisted. It's almost like something is moving out there. Multiple somethings. Large objects entering and leaving faster than light space. Day 1, Hana said gently. We've been looking for signs of alien life for 100 years. Every time we think we've found something, it turns out to be natural. Remember the pulsar signals? Everyone thought those were alien beacons and they were just spinning stars. Day 1 nodded slowly, but he did not look convinced. I know, you're probably right, but I'm going to keep monitoring it anyway. You do that, Hannah said, patting his shoulder. I'm going to go work on the telescope maintenance schedule like a responsible person. As she walked away, Day 1 turned back to his screen. The anomalies were definitely getting stronger. He saved the data and sent a copy to the International Space Monitoring Network, just in case, across the city in a secure military facility. Colonel Taman sat in a briefing room with 24 other officers. They were from different countries, all part of the Earth Defense Initiative, a barely functional coalition that had been formed 10 years earlier. Most nations still did not trust each other completely, but they tried to work together on space monitoring. We've lost contact with 3 satellites in the past 6 hours, a technician was saying. All of them were in high orbit, monitoring different sections of the solar system. Equipment failure? Taemin asked. Unlikely, sir. They were different models, launched by different countries at different times. The chances of all 3 failing simultaneously are extremely small. Taemin frowned. He was a career military man, 50 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Could they have been destroyed? By what, sir? There's nothing out there. No debris, no asteroid impacts, nothing on any of our tracking systems. Keep monitoring, Taemin ordered, and increase the alert level for all space-based assets. Something is wrong. Back in the council chamber, the vote was taking place. Thousands of representatives entered their decisions into the system. The hologram above Velter showed the results in real time. 97% in favor, Kalma announced. The motion passes. The Torvan Empire is authorized to conduct operations against Earth. Velter bowed deeply. The Council has made a wise decision. In 3 cycles, Earth will be a Torvan colony and their warriors will be satisfied. Peace will return to this sector. The chamber erupted in relieved applause and the sounds of agreement from 1,000 different species. Finally, the Torvan problem would be solved. Only Kalma did not celebrate. She sat in her seat, staring at the blue planet in the hologram, and felt a cold fear in her heart. Something about this was wrong. Humans looked weak on paper, but evolution did not create 8 billion weak creatures by accident. She opened a private communication channel to her assistant. Monitor the Earth invasion closely, she said quietly. Record everything. I want to know exactly what happens. Far away, Admiral Kresh of the Torvan Empire received the Council's authorization. He looked at the data on Earth and smiled. His fleet of 300 warships was already moving into position at the edge of the solar system. Finally, he said to his officers, a proper conquest. These humans will learn to fear the Torvan. His fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the void. On Earth, Day 1's instruments screamed with alerts. His screen filled with contact signatures, dozens of them, hundreds of them, all appearing at once near Mars. He stared at the screen, his hands shaking. Then he reached for his phone and called his supervisor. We have a problem, he said, his voice barely steady. A very big problem? We're not alone anymore. The Torvan fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like sharks entering shallow water. 300 massive warships, each one larger than any building on Earth, hung in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter. Their hulls were black and angular, designed to inspire fear in anyone who saw them. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet on his screen. It seemed so peaceful, so unaware of what was coming. He had conquered 12 worlds in his 40-year career. This would be the easiest. Send the surrender demand, he ordered. His communications officer nodded and opened a channel to Earth, broadcasting on every frequency the humans used. The message was simple and direct: surrender immediately or be destroyed. On Earth, chaos erupted. Every radio, television, and communication system on the planet received the message simultaneously. Governments scrambled to respond. People flooded into the streets, looking up at the sky as if they could see the alien fleet with their naked eyes. Colonel Taemin was in the emergency command center within minutes of the broadcast. The room was filled with military officers and government officials from every major nation. Screens on the walls showed the Torvan fleet, tracked by every telescope and satellite Earth possessed. "How long until they reach us?" someone asked. "If they maintain their current speed, approximately 6 hours," a technician answered. "But sir, they could move much faster if they wanted." "I think they're trying to give us time to panic." "Then we won't give them the satisfaction," Taemin said. He turned to the communications team. "Open a channel. I want to speak to them directly." The channel opened. Taemin stood in front of the camera, wearing his military uniform, and spoke with a calm voice that surprised even himself. "This is Colonel Jae-sung of the Earth Defense Initiative. You have attacked a sovereign world without provocation. This is an act of war. Withdraw immediately, or you will face consequences." Admiral Kresh heard the transmission and laughed. The sound was not pleasant. Did that primitive just threaten me? Does he not understand the situation? "Shall we demonstrate our power, Admiral?" his tactical officer asked. "Yes, destroy their orbital station, the unmanned one. Let them see what we can do." A single Torvan warship moved forward. Its main weapon charged with a sound like thunder, and a beam of pure energy lanced across space. Earth's International Space Station, empty after an emergency evacuation 3 hours earlier, vanished in a ball of fire. In the command center, people gasped. On screens around the world, humans watched their space station disappear. Some screamed. Others cried. But many, so many more, felt something else. Something that burned hot and fierce. They felt anger. Taemin's jaw tightened. "Someone get me the nuclear launch codes." "All of them." "From every nation, sir?" an officer asked, uncertain. "You heard me. And give me every missile we have. Every rocket. Every satellite with propulsion. I want everything that can fly ready to launch in 2 hours." Around the room, people began moving. Phone calls were made. Codes were transmitted. Old enemies became instant allies. Russia, America, China, India, Europe, all of them opened their arsenals. For the first time in human history, every nuclear weapon on Earth was placed under a single command. Day One worked frantically in his laboratory, analyzing every piece of data about the Torvan ships. Hannah worked beside him now, no longer smiling, her face set with determination. "Their energy signatures are enormous," Day One said. "Each ship generates more power than our entire electrical grid. But look at this pattern. The energy fluctuates in a regular cycle." "Shields?" Hannah asked. "Must be. Some kind of defensive field around each ship. Our weapons probably won't penetrate." "Probably isn't certainly," Hannah said. "What if we hit them with everything at once? Could we overwhelm the shields?" Day One ran calculations on his computer. "Maybe, if we launched enough missiles, the shields might overload. But we'd need hundreds, thousands." "Then we'd better get started," Hannah said. Reaching for her phone, Admiral Kresh watched his fleet move into orbital positions around Earth. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Soon they would land ground forces in the major cities. The humans would surrender within days, maybe hours. Then his tactical officer spoke, and her voice was confused. "Admiral, we're detecting launches from the planet. Multiple launches." "Hundreds of them? Their spacecraft?" Kresh asked, unconcerned. "No, sir, missiles, primitive rocket-propelled missiles. They're launching everything they have." Kresh pulled up the tactical display and stared. The screen showed thousands of red dots rising from Earth, spreading out like a swarm of angry insects. The humans were attacking. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Current count is over 4,000 and climbing, sir." "They're launching from every continent? From underground silos, from submarines, from mobile platforms?" "Sir, these are nuclear weapons. All of them." For the first time in his career, Admiral Kresh felt a touch of uncertainty. "Activate all defensive systems," Point defense, electronic warfare, everything. Those missiles cannot reach us. The Torvan fleet opened fire. Laser systems tracked and destroyed hundreds of missiles. Electronic warfare systems jammed guidance computers. Defensive shields flickered and glowed as warheads detonated against them. But there were too many. The humans had launched their entire nuclear arsenal, every weapon they possessed, in one massive wave. 4,000 missiles became 5,000. 5,000 became 6,000. Some were primitive. Some were advanced. All of them were deadly. 16 Torvan warships died in the first 5 minutes. Their shields overloaded. Nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness of space, each explosion bright as a small sun. In the command center, people cheered as they watched Torvan ships disappear from their screens. But Taman did not celebrate. He knew what was coming next. "They're going to be angry now," he said quietly. "Get ready for ground assault. They'll want revenge." On the Torvan flagship, Admiral Kresh stared at his display in disbelief. He had lost 16 ships? 16? To a primitive species that should not have been able to scratch his paint. How is this possible? He demanded. "They used numbers, sir," his tactical officer said. "They overwhelmed our defenses through sheer volume. Our shields can stop advanced weapons, but these were primitive explosives. Thousands of them. The shields weren't designed for that kind of sustained bombardment." Kresh's face darkened. "Launch ground forces. All of them. I want boots on the ground in every major city. We will crush these humans personally." Across the globe, humans watched as alien landing craft descended from the sky. The ships were smaller than the warships, but still massive, each one carrying hundreds of Torvan soldiers. In Seoul, South Korea, Bora worked in a factory that normally built automobiles. Now it was being converted to build something else. She was a combat engineer called up from the reserves when the invasion began. Around her, workers welded armor plates onto trucks, mounted heavy weapons on industrial vehicles, turned manufacturing robots into automated gun platforms. "How long do we have?" someone asked. "Landing craft will touch down in 20 minutes, Bora answered. "We need to be ready." "We're putting machine guns on forklifts," another worker said, laughing nervously. "We're fighting aliens with forklifts." "We're fighting aliens with everything we have," Bora corrected. "If it can move and hold a weapon, we're using it." Sung-ho sat in a university laboratory, surrounded by captured sensor data from the Torvan ships. He was a quantum physicist, one of the best in the world, and for the past 3 hours he had been studying the enemy shields. "There's a pattern," he muttered to himself. "Everything has a resonance frequency, everything, even alien shields." His fingers flew across the keyboard. Equations filled his screen. The Torvan shields operated on a frequency band that Earth physics recognized but had never fully explored. If he could find the exact frequency, if he could generate a signal that matched it— "I've got it," he said suddenly. He grabbed his phone and called the command center. "This is Dr. Sung-ho at Seoul National University. I need to speak to whoever is in charge of weapons development." "Right now." Ginu checked his rifle one more time. He was a Special Forces operative, trained for missions that officially did not exist. His unit was stationed on a rooftop in downtown Seoul, watching the sky. They were the first line of defense. "Remember," he told his team, "we don't know how tough they are. Aim for joints. Aim for what looks like sensor equipment. If the head looks important, shoot it. And don't stop shooting until they stop moving." "What if our bullets don't work?" a young soldier asked. "Then we use explosives. And if explosives don't work, we use our hands. And if our hands don't work, we use our teeth. We don't stop. We never stop." "Understood?" "Yes, sir," the team answered together. The first Torvan landing craft touched down in the center of the city. The rear ramp opened and Torvan soldiers marched out. They were tall, over 7 feet, with armor that gleamed in the sunlight. They carried weapons that hummed with power. They expected screaming humans running in terror. Instead, they found an empty street. Then the shooting started, from windows. From rooftops, from underground passages, humans opened fire. Bullets sparked off Torvin armor. Most did no damage, but some found gaps. Some found weak points. Torvin soldiers fell. Jinwoo watched through his scope as one alien turned toward his position. He fired 3 quick shots. The second day of the invasion began with a surprise that Admiral Kresh did not expect. His ground forces, preparing to push deeper into human cities, suddenly found their personal shields failing. Weapons that had bounced off them yesterday now punched through. Soldiers who had felt invincible suddenly felt very, very mortal. What is happening? Kresh demanded from his flagship. The humans are broadcasting some kind of signal, sir, his technical officer reported. It's disrupting our shield generators. We don't understand how they discovered the frequency so quickly. Adapt the shields. Change the frequency. We're trying, sir, but every time we change it, they match the new frequency within minutes. It's as if they can see our shield operations in real time. In Seoul, Sung-ho sat surrounded by computers, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Every time the Torvin changed their shield frequency, he tracked the change and calculated the new disruption signal. His equations were being broadcast to every human military unit on the planet. They're trying to rotate through different frequencies, he told the command center. But there are only so many combinations that work with their technology. We can chase them. Hannah worked beside him, managing the communications network that spread his calculations worldwide. How long can we keep this up? As long as we need to, Sung-ho answered. They have better technology, but we have 8 billion brains working on this problem. Eventually, we'll know their systems better than they do. On the streets of Seoul, Jinwoo's unit moved through the ruins of what had been a shopping district. They had learned so much in just one day. Torvin soldiers were strong, but not invincible. Their armor had weak points. Their weapons had limited ammunition. And most importantly, they had never fought an enemy like humans before. Contact, 3 o'clock. Jinwoo's spotter called Jin-Woo signaled his team into position. They had developed new tactics overnight, adapting to everything they had learned. No more direct confrontation. Now they used ambush, hit-and-run attacks, traps. The Torvin patrol rounded a corner and walked directly into a trap. Explosives detonated from above, dropping a building facade on top of them. Before they could recover, Jinwoo's team opened fire, targeting the gaps in their armor. 4 Torvin down in 15 seconds. The humans melted away before reinforcements could arrive. Command, this is Strike Team 7, Jinwoo reported. Another successful engagement. We're moving to the next position. All across Earth, similar reports came in. Humans were learning, adapting, evolving their tactics hour by hour. What the Torvin expected to be a simple occupation was becoming a nightmare of guerrilla warfare. But humanity was planning something much bigger. Bora stood in what had once been an aircraft hangar, now converted into a weapons development facility. Around her, the captured Torvin landing craft sat like a prize. It had been shot down on the first day, relatively intact. Human engineers had been crawling over it ever since. The power system is completely different from ours, one engineer explained. But the principles are the same. They're using a matter-antimatter reaction, controlled by magnetic containment. Can we copy it? Bora asked. Copy? Maybe in a year? But adapt our existing weapons to work with their technology? That we can do in days? Bora smiled. Show me. The engineer led her to a workbench where a Torvin plasma rifle had been disassembled. Look at this. The weapon draws power from a compact fusion cell. We can't make fusion cells, but we can make batteries. Big batteries. If we bypass the safety systems and pump in enough power... He activated the modified weapon. It glowed with blue light, humming with barely contained energy. It'll only get 3 or 4 shots before the battery dies, the engineer admitted. But those shots will punch through anything. Perfect, Bora said. How many can you make by tomorrow? With the entire factory working? Maybe 200? Make 400, Bora ordered. I don't care if people have to work around the clock. We need every advantage we can get. In another part of the city, Hein Wu worked in a sealed biological research facility. He was a bioweapons researcher, though his work had been purely defensive before the invasion. Now he studied Torvan corpses, recovered from the battlefield. What he discovered disturbed him. Their biology is actually quite fragile, he told the military officers observing his work. They come from a world with different atmospheric composition. Higher oxygen, lower nitrogen. Different microbes. Their immune systems have never encountered Earth bacteria. Are you saying we could make them sick? An officer asked. I'm saying we could make them very dead, Hyun Woo corrected. I've identified 3 Earth bacteria that would be lethal to them. We could weaponize these, spread them through their ships, their bases, their supplies. The officers exchanged glances. Would it work on their homeworld? Hyun Woo nodded slowly. With modifications, yes. We could engineer a pathogen that would spread through their entire species. It would take time, but it's possible. Do it, one officer said. No, another interrupted. Not yet. We develop it, we study it, we prepare it. But we don't use it unless we have no choice. We're not murderers. Han Wu agreed. I'll have the research ready. But I hope we never need it. On the Torvan flagship, Admiral Kresh faced a problem he had never encountered before. His invasion was stalling. His soldiers were dying. And worst of all, his superiors were questioning him. The humans have captured 3 of our landing craft, his tactical officer reported. Intelligence suggests they're studying our technology. Send strike teams to destroy those craft, Kresh ordered. We tried, sir. The humans have fortified the locations. Every attempt to approach has resulted in heavy casualties. Kresh slammed his fist on his command console. These are primitives. How are they doing this? His communications officer spoke up hesitantly. Sir, we've intercepted some of their communications. They're sharing information globally. Every time we use a new tactic, every time we change a strategy, they analyze it and share the countermeasures with all their forces within hours. They're learning, Kresh said quietly. Yes, sir. Faster than any species we've encountered. In the Galactic Council chamber, panic was spreading. What they were watching should not be possible. A primitive species with technology thousands of years behind the Torvan was not just resisting. They were adapting. Pull the Torvan back, Koma demanded. Order them to withdraw before this gets worse. Velter shook his head. The Torvan will never retreat from a fight. It's not in their nature. And if we order them to withdraw, we admit that we made a terrible mistake. We did make a terrible mistake, Koma snapped. We sent warriors to conquer survivors. Look at them. On the screen, a human city burned. Torvan soldiers advanced through the streets. But for every human that fell, 2 more appeared. They fought from windows, from sewers, from hidden tunnels. They used weapons, rocks, their bare hands. They didn't stop. They don't know how to surrender, one council member whispered. Or they know, and they choose not to, Koma said. That's worse. Back on Earth, Colonel Taman stood in the command center, looking at a map of the world. Red zones showed Torvan-controlled areas. Blue zones showed human resistance. There was a lot of red, but the blue zones weren't shrinking anymore. They were holding. We've lost approximately 50 million people, an officer reported quietly. Military and civilian combined. Taman's jaw tightened. 50 million lives in 2 days. It was a number almost too big to comprehend. And them? He asked. Torvan casualties are estimated at 30,000 soldiers, plus 16 warships from the nuclear bombardment. 30,000 against 50 million. The ratio was terrible, but it was a ratio which meant the Torvan could be killed, which meant they could be beaten. Menesio is ready with the drone assault. Another officer reported. Min-SA was a civilian drone operator who had been recruited for military service. Before the invasion, she had used drones to photograph weddings and real estate. Now she controlled a swarm of 200 modified commercial drones, each one carrying a payload of armor-piercing ammunition. Launch the assault, Taemin ordered. In the sky over a Torvan-occupied sector. 200 drones suddenly appeared, moving in coordinated patterns. The Torvin tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, moving too fast. Too unpredictably, the drones dove, targeting the weak points in Torvin armor that Jinwoo's team had identified: joints, neck seals, optical senses. The ammunition was human-made, simple solid metal, but aimed with perfect precision by computer guidance. Torvin soldiers fell by the dozens. Their return fire destroyed many drones, but new ones kept coming. Min ACO controlled them from a bunker 10 kilometers away, her fingers dancing across multiple control interfaces. Target-rich environment, she muttered to herself. Like shooting fish in a barrel. Very dangerous, very armored fish. Across the planet, similar attacks happened simultaneously. Humans had spent the entire night planning, coordinating, preparing. Now they struck everywhere at once. In Beijing, human forces collapsed tunnels on Torvin supply lines. In London, electromagnetic pulses disabled Torvin communications. In Mumbai, engineers diverted rivers to flood Torvin encampments, and in Seoul, Bora's team successfully mounted the first captured Torvin plasma weapon onto a human fighter jet. The pilot, Youngjin, took off from a makeshift runway on a highway. This is Alpha 1. The captured Torvin landing craft sat in a heavily fortified hangar, surrounded by human engineers, pilots, and scientists. Day 1 stood on the loading ramp, holding a datapad filled with calculations and system diagrams. Beside him stood Captain Junho, a former airline pilot who had volunteered for what everyone was calling a suicide mission. The controls are actually simpler than I expected, Junho said, studying the alien cockpit. More intuitive. Almost like they designed it for any species to use. That makes sense, Day 1 replied. The Torvin Empire probably conquers a lot of worlds. They would need systems that anyone could operate. But here's the problem. The navigation computer is locked. It only accepts destinations that are already in its memory. What destinations does it have? Day 1 pulled up the list. Earth orbit, Mars orbit, and something 12 light-years from here. The coordinates match what we detected from their faster-than-light signatures. A supply base, Bora said, joining them on the ramp. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, but her voice was steady. It has to be. Admiral Kresh's fleet came from somewhere. They need fuel, ammunition, spare parts. So we attacked their supply base, Junho said. Cut them off from reinforcements. With 3 ships and crews that have never flown anything like this before, Bora pointed out. Against who knows how many Torvin defenders. You have a better idea? Bora smiled grimly. No, I'm going with you. Someone needs to work the weapon systems. Over the next 12 hours, humanity performed a miracle. 3 captured Torvin landing craft were analyzed, modified, and prepared for combat. Human pilots trained on simulators that Day 1's team built from captured ship data. Weapons were loaded, systems were tested, and volunteers were selected. Junho would command the lead ship, with Day 1 as his science officer and Bora as his weapons officer. The other 2 ships would be commanded by pilots from different countries. The international cooperation that had seemed impossible just weeks ago now felt natural. When facing extinction, humans forgot their differences quickly. Remember, Taemin told them in a final briefing, your mission is not to win. Your mission is to hurt them. Destroy their supplies. Make them worry about what's happening behind their lines. Make them doubt, and if we don't come back? Junho asked. Then you'll have bought Earth time, Taemin said honestly. Time to prepare. Time to survive. That's all any of us can do. The 3 ships launched at dawn, rising through Earth's atmosphere with human crews at the controls. They flew awkwardly at first, the pilots struggling with alien systems, but they learned quickly. They always learned quickly. Coordinates locked, Day 1 reported. Jumping to faster than light in 30 seconds. Junho gripped the controls. He had flown passenger jets for 15 years. He had never expected to command a spacecraft, especially not an alien warship on an attack mission. But here he was, doing it anyway because someone had to. All ships report ready, Laura said. Weapons charge. Shields at maximum. Then let's go introduce ourselves, Junho said. He engaged the faster-than-light drive. The universe twisted. For a moment that felt like eternity and no time at all, they existed between spaces. Then they emerged near a massive orbital structure 12 light-years from Earth. The supply depot was even larger than they had feared. It was a space station the size of a city, with dozens of Torvan warships docked around it. Smaller craft moved between the station and the ships, loading supplies. We're detecting automated defenses, Day 1 warned. Lots of them, and at least 4 warships on active patrol. Target the fuel storage, Junho ordered. If we're only getting one shot at this, let's make it count. The 3 human ships dove toward the station, their weapons firing. The Torvan had not expected an attack on their supply base. Why would they? No species had ever been crazy enough to use captured ships to attack behind enemy lines with barely any training. No species, except humans. Bora's plasma cannons tore into the station's fuel storage tanks. The explosions were spectacular, bright enough to hurt the eyes even through the ship's filters. Secondary explosions rippled across the station as stored ammunition and fuel ignited. 2 warships breaking from the station, Day 1 called out. They're coming for us. Then we run, Junho said. He threw the ship into a hard turn, pushing the engines beyond what the safety systems recommended. Behind them, one of the other human ships was not so lucky. A Torvan warship caught it with a direct hit, and it vanished in a ball of fire. Jump! Jump now. Bora shouted. Jun-ho, engage the faster-than-light drive. The universe twisted again. When they emerged, they were in empty space, halfway between the Torvan supply depot and Earth. Status? Junho asked, his hands shaking on the controls. We lost Ship 3, Day 1 reported quietly. Ship 2 is heavily damaged, but still with us. And we're reading massive damage to the supply depot. At least 60% of their fuel reserves are gone. Good, Junho said. Then they didn't die for nothing. Back at the supply depot, chaos reigned. The station commander stared at the destruction in disbelief. A supply depot, hidden 12 light-years from the target world, had been attacked by the enemy using captured ships. How did they even find us? He demanded. The ships they captured had our coordinates in their navigation systems, an officer explained. Then why didn't we change the coordinates? Why didn't we assume they could access that data? There was no answer. The Torvan had never faced an enemy that could learn their technology so quickly. It had never occurred to them that it was possible. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives watched the attack with growing horror. The humans had not just defended their planet. They had launched a counterattack against a superior force, 12 light-years from their homeworld, using stolen technology they barely understood. This is impossible, Velter whispered. They've only had faster-than-light technology for days. How are they using it so effectively? Koma-'s voice was quiet but carried across the chamber. Because they're survivors. They don't have time to be cautious. They don't have the luxury of following standard procedures. They do what works, and they do it now? On Earth, while Junho's team attacked the supply depot, another front was opening. Sujin sat in a communications bunker, wearing headphones and speaking into a microphone. She was a psychological warfare specialist, recruited from a civilian marketing firm where she had created advertising campaigns. Now she created nightmares. Attention Torvan forces, she broadcast on every frequency the aliens used. You are 12 light-years from home. Your supply depot has been destroyed. Your reinforcements will not arrive in time. You are alone. You are surrounded by 8 billion humans who will never stop fighting. We know your biology. We know your weaknesses. We can make weapons that will target your species specifically. Biological weapons. Chemical weapons. Weapons that will spread to your homeworld and kill everyone you love. The broadcast was a lie, of course. Hyan Wu's bioweapons research was still in early stages. But the Torvan didn't know that. And fear was a weapon as effective as any plasma rifle on the surface, Jinwoo led a boarding action against a Torvan landing craft. His team had developed the tactic overnight, another adaptation in humanity's rapid evolution of warfare. They used the Torvan's own technology against them, hacking the ship's life support and venting atmosphere from specific sections while they wore captured Torvan environment suits. The Torvan crew fought desperately, but they were fighting on a ship they thought was safe, against enemies who shouldn't have been able to breach their defenses. Jinwoo's team took the ship with 15 casualties against 300 Torvan. "Command, this is Strike Team 7, Jinwoo reported. "We have secured another ship, requesting technical teams for study." "Copy that, Strike Team 7, came the reply. "Well done. You're making this look easy." Jinwoo laughed bitterly. "Easy? Half my team is dead? But we're still here, and that's what matters." Admiral Kresh received all the reports simultaneously. The supply depot attack, the psychological warfare broadcasts, the loss of another landing craft. His invasion, which should have been finished in days, was now entering its 5th day with no end in sight. And then came the worst news of all. "Sir, we've intercepted communications from the human government," his communications officer said. "They're broadcasting to our homeworld. They're sending detailed information about their bioweapon research directly to our people." "What?" Kresh stood up from his command chair. "How do they even know where our homeworld is?" "The captured ships, sir." The navigation computers contained the coordinates. Kresh felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt afraid. Not for himself, but for his people. These humans, these impossible, terrifying humans, were threatening to take the war to the Torvan homeworld. "Are they bluffing?" he asked quietly. "Unknown, sir. But they did attack our supply depot with captured ships. They've demonstrated they're capable of reaching our territory." "Contact Earth Command," Kresh ordered. "I want to negotiate." In the command center, Taemin received the communication request with satisfaction. The Torvan wanted to talk. That meant they were worried. "Put him through," Taemin said. Admiral Kresh's image appeared on the screen. He looked tired and his confidence was gone. "I am willing to discuss terms," Kresh said carefully. The alarm sounded across every human military installation simultaneously. In the command center, Taemin stared at the display with cold dread spreading through his chest. "Antimatter signatures detected," a technical officer reported, her voice shaking. "Multiple launches from the Torvan flagship. 36 torpedoes targeted at major population centers. Time to impact, 12 minutes. 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, every major city on Earth would cease to exist. New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, Delhi, Seoul. Gone. 3 billion people dead." "Those weapons are banned by galactic law," someone said uselessly. "Get me Sung-ho," Taemin ordered. "And pray he has something." Sung-ho was already running calculations when the call came through. His mind worked faster than it ever had before, processing data, analyzing patterns, searching for the one weakness that might save humanity. "The antimatter torpedoes use the same shield technology as the Torvan ships," he said rapidly. "They have to. The antimatter is contained within shield bubbles. If those shields fail, the torpedoes explode prematurely." "Can you disrupt them?" Taemin asked. "If I can broadcast the right frequency, yes. But I need to analyze the torpedo shields first. Send me every sensor reading we have." "You have 8 minutes," Taemin said. "Then stop talking and send me the data." Sung-ho snapped dot around the world. People looked up at the sky. They had been told to evacuate, but where could they go? The torpedoes were targeted at cities, but the explosions would be massive. Blast waves would level everything for hundreds of kilometers. In Seoul, Hana stood on the roof of the research building, watching the sky. She had sent her family to the countryside, but she had stayed. If Sung-ho needed help, she would be here. "You should have left," Sung-ho said, not looking up from his computer. "So should you," Hana replied. "But we're not really the leaving type, are we?" Jinwoo assembled his team in their defensive position. If the torpedoes hit, they would all die instantly. but until then they had a job to do. The Torvan ground forces were still out there, and humanity would fight until the last second. If this is the end, he told his team, we make it a good one. We don't stop. We never stop. On Junho's captured ship, now limping back toward Earth, Day One picked up the torpedo launches on his sensors. He looked at Junho, and they both knew what it meant. We can't get back in time, Day One said quietly. Then we'll arrive at a dead planet, Junho replied. But we'll arrive. And we'll make the Torvan pay for every single life. Bora checked their weapon systems. We still have ammunition. If Earth falls, we hit every Torvan ship we can reach. We don't stop until they destroy us. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives watched in stunned horror. Veltor had gone completely pale, his 6 arms trembling. He used antimatter weapons. Kresh used antimatter weapons on a civilian population. That's a war crime. That's an extinction-level war crime. Dispatch Council Enforcement Fleet immediately, Kalma ordered. And somebody contact Earth Command. We need to wait, someone said, pointing at the tactical display. Look at Earth. From every human installation, from every military base, from civilian research centers, even from improvised broadcast stations set up in garages and warehouses, a signal was propagating across the planet. It pulsed with mathematical precision. Building in strength with each passing second dot in his laboratory, Sung-ho's hands flew across the keyboard. He had done it. He had analyzed the torpedo shields and calculated the disruption frequency. Now that frequency was being broadcast from thousands of locations simultaneously, each one amplifying the others. Frequency lock acquired? He shouted. Broadcasting now. The signal reached the antimatter torpedoes. Their shield generators, never designed to operate under such specific resonant frequency assault, began to fail. The cascading failures happened in MICRO, high above Earth's atmosphere. 36 antimatter torpedoes exploded simultaneously. The blasts were visible from the ground, like 36 new suns blooming in the sky. The electromagnetic pulse from the explosions wiped out satellites and disrupted communications, but no cities burned. No continents died. Humanity had survived. In the command center, people erupted in cheers. Taemin allowed himself a brief moment of relief, then immediately began issuing orders. Launch everything we have. Every captured ship, every modified weapon, every missile we've been saving. Hit them now while they're in shock. Youngjin, coordinating missile defense networks, suddenly spoke up. Sir, we have another contact. Not Torvan. It's coming from the Galactic Council. The communication channel opened, and Kalma's image appeared. She looked old and tired, but her voice was firm. This is Council Representative Kalma. The Torvan Empire's actions have violated galactic law. A Council enforcement fleet is en route. You have our support, and you have our apology. We should never have authorized this invasion. Your apology won't bring back our dead, Taemin said coldly. No, Kalma agreed. Nothing can. But we can offer you something else. Recognition, protection, a place in the galactic community. We don't need your protection, Taemin said. We've protected ourselves? I noticed, Kalma said dryly. But you might need allies. The galaxy is large, and there are worse things out there than the Torvan. Consider it. Before Taemin could respond, new alerts filled the screens. The Torvan fleet was breaking orbit. Not attacking, fleeing. Admiral Kresh sat on his command bridge and faced the reality of his situation. He had lost over 100 ships. His supply lines were destroyed. His ground forces were being slaughtered. His antimatter gambit had failed spectacularly. And now the Council was sending enforcement fleets. He had failed. Completely and utterly. Set course for home, he ordered quietly. All ships retreat. His officers scrambled to comply. Within minutes, the Torvan fleet was jumping to faster-than-light speed, abandoning their ground forces, abandoning their equipment, abandoning everything in a desperate rush to escape on the ground. Torvan soldiers suddenly found themselves without air support, without reinforcements, without hope. Some tried to fight. Some tried to surrender. Most died, cut down by human forces that had spent 6 days learning exactly how to kill them. Jinwoo's team captured a Torvan command post and found detailed intelligence data, locations of Torvan military installations, civilian population centers, industrial facilities, everything humanity would need if they ever decided to return the favor of this invasion. Send all of this to command, Jinwoo ordered. Let's make sure the Torvan understand what we could do to them if we wanted to. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives began to understand what they had witnessed. It was not just a failed invasion. It was a demonstration. Humanity had proven that they could not be conquered, could not be intimidated, could not be destroyed. How long did this invasion last? One representative asked. 6 days, another answered. From first contact to complete Torvan withdrawal. 6 days. And in those 6 days, they learned to use Torvan technology, developed counters to Torvan weapons, attacked behind Torvan lines, and forced a warrior species to flee. What are we going to do about them? Nothing, Kalma said firmly. We're going to leave them alone, treat them with respect, and never, ever threaten them. Because now we know what they're capable of. 6 months later, Day One stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Defiance, the captured Torvan ship that had carried humanity's first counterattack. It had been repaired, modified, and upgraded with human technology. Now it served as the flagship of Earth's new defense fleet. Beside him, Hana operated the communications station. They were approaching the Galactic Council station, Earth's first official diplomatic mission. Nervous? Hana asked. Terrified, Day One admitted. A year ago I was studying gravitational waves. Now I'm representing humanity to the entire galaxy. You'll do fine, she assured him. Just be honest. That's what we're good at. The council chamber was different when seen in person rather than on a screen. The massive circular structure held thousands of representatives from hundreds of species. When Day One and the Earth delegation entered, every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward them. Kalma stood to greet them. Welcome, representatives of Earth. The Council recognizes your sovereignty and offers you observer status, with full membership available upon your request. We accept observer status, Day One said carefully. But we need to make something clear. Earth is under our protection. Humanity is under our protection. We didn't ask for this war, but you brought it to us anyway. And you saw what happened. We did, Kalma agreed. Which is why the Council has voted unanimously to accept Earth as an independent power. Your territory is recognized. Your rights are guaranteed. And most importantly, every species in this chamber understands that humans are not to be threatened. Day One nodded slowly. Good, because we don't want war. We've had enough war to last us 1,000 years. But we need you to understand something about humanity. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled species. When he spoke again, his voice carried to every corner. We don't surrender. We don't break. We adapt, we survive. And we never, ever forget. Earth is here now. We're part of the galaxy. And the galaxy is going to have to get used to that. The chamber was silent. Then slowly, Kalma began to applaud. Other representatives joined in.